What's up, the squad? Back with another video. I'm Recklezz.
I'm Chris.
We got some Thomas Sowell versus Trevor Noah on slavery and reparations. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button. Definitely appreciate everybody tuning in, watching this reaction. Please hit the like button. Let's get into some Thomas Sowell.
So to your question, I think you have to understand what the word reparations means first. So reparations, you are repairing something that you have broken. You are paying for something that you were supposed to pay for. I'm not saying that there aren't people living in America today who are suffering and are going through pain and strife because of what's happening when it comes to machines taking jobs, factories becoming industrialized, etc. But reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is black people were slaves.
Article that got a lot of attention in The Atlantic a couple of years ago called The Case for Reparations by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Quote, "White supremacy is a force so fundamental to America that it is difficult to imagine the country without it. Reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely." Close quote. And Tom Sowell, who actually saw Jim Crow with his own eyes and experienced it, responds how?
It would be nice to know his evidence for what he said, just to be old-fashioned about it. No, it was a rotten system. But I don't know how we get from that to reparations. I mean, what we see in the United States in terms of the bad things, you see all around the world. If you were to give reparations to everyone whose ancestors had been slaves, I suspect that you would have to give reparations to more than half the entire population of the globe. Slavery was not confined to one set of races. I suspect that most of the people who were either slaves or slave owners around the world were neither white nor black. I mean, this was a universal curse of the human species.
Africa, the Middle East, Asia, slavery took place everywhere.
And it continued elsewhere long after it was abolished in the Western countries.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Like, I watching videos like this, even before, about slavery, in general. And in my mind, before even watching these videos, it started about 2 months ago watching these videos, about slavery, even about politics. I always thought that slavery, and again, this is a lot what I was taught in school, this is a lot that I was, said from my parents, and a lot of people don't know. Especially everybody's parents don't know everything. Everybody doesn't know everything. And I was actually taught, and in my head, all slaves were black, all slaves were black. It was all Africans,
Yeah.
and seeing in school, you would see like the Africans, in the little books, like illustrated.
Yeah, say at school.
Yeah. So seeing these videos and seeing it was other races, it's kind of, more so of, it was surprising to me because I didn't know.
Definitely surprising. Yeah.
But as Thomas Sowell is saying, it wasn't just, and
I feel like a lot of people still don't know that today.
Watching these videos, doing research,
I've even heard people say like, oh, but there were some of the Irish who were indentured. Like, yeah, slavery. Look at the numbers, look at the time, look at the level of work. You could not work toward your freedom. For most black people in America, this was a time when you lived and died as a slave. And so that's what reparations is about.
The other thing, I have a slight sidebar on the history of slavery. The history of slavery existed all over the world for thousands of years among all sorts of people, as far back as the history of the human species goes. It's one of many evils that the left tries to localize, when in fact it is a universal evil. But more than that, as much as slavery is repudiated around the world today, prior to the 18th century, I know of no serious effort to abolish the institution anywhere. Anywhere.
Not in Africa, not in the Arabian
world. Not
in
Africa in the 21st century. When Adam Smith wrote in 1776 that the only place in the world where slavery had been abolished completely was Western Europe. And so this was
as late as the year this country was founded.
Yes. And so the idea that this is something that the United States had that nobody else had, or the other countries that didn't have, it's been estimated that there are more slaves in India than in the entire Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
And that's before and after Columbus got here.
Right.
And so I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a completely separate conversation that needs to be had about the now. Because if you are not careful, what you then do is you combine everybody's suffering into the same bowl, and you make it seem like all injustices have the same weighting, and they don't. Just like crimes, theft isn't the same as murder. We don't try them the same way. And as much as there is a white person who's suffering today, I feel for anybody who's suffering, because I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to suffer. I didn't come from a wealthy family. We struggled when I was growing up. But I also understand that there are levels of that suffering, And so sometimes white people, it does block a white person, because you go, white privilege, and a person goes, I'm poor and I'm white. Where's the privilege? White people are like, I wish I could activate my white privilege. I wish I could do it right now. White privilege, give me something. I get that. I get that. Trust me, I get it. It is hard to accept that you have benefits because of the color of your skin if you cannot see the benefits that you have.
The book that I'm writing now, I discovered this is true not only in the United States, it's true in England.
I don't know though, because I feel like it's me personally, seeing growing up. It really just, it's kind of like you can't really base how I think about a lot of this is I don't really base it off of skin color. It's more so of the environment that you are around, the environment that you grew up around. Because regardless, I grew up and when I was younger, I was around, and it's hard to even say because I really don't remember, but I know what I do remember of growing up in a nice neighborhood. And it was it's just, I don't think it's more so of color to me. It's more so around the environment.
In a nice neighborhood at all.
You said what?
I said I didn't grow up in a nice neighborhood at all.
Yeah. So that's the thing though. Do you feel like you were treated differently than your classmates? Because I know you went. What school did you go to? Elementary.
Pleasant Run.
Pleasant Run. Okay, so that's a lot of black kids still to this day go there. Did you feel that you were treated any differently
No.
than those kids? And that's the thing. It's hard to it's more so of where you grew up and the environment that you was around and how you were treated.
Yeah, that's why I don't look at the whole color thing. It's, I don't know. I don't get that. I don't pay attention to it like that, I guess you could say.
And it's kind of weird. And I actually enjoy watching these videos, especially with Chris, because we grew up in two different households, obviously, and two different environments, two different schools. Like she just said, you didn't grow up in,
a nice neighborhood.
A nice neighborhood, a nice school.
Environment,
But then I went to a school
so it doesn't.
that, it was more so of more white kids in that school. I used to tell her all the time, we used to, I went to a high school where, 6, 7, 8 lines. We even had a line that, I'm talking about lunch lines, a line that literally had coffee, smoothies, cookies, bagels, and it's coming from that, the way you was treated. I really can't say because it was some black and white kids that was treated, especially with sports.
Yeah.
You have favorites. So I don't really know. I guess I don't know. It's kind of hard to even.
The book that I'm writing now, I discovered this is true not only in the United States, it's true in England, and the situation is wholly different. And yet, if you read the data, for example, from London, the educational tests and so forth, you see that there, immigrants from Africa pass this test they have. I'm talking about low-income people now. Nearly 60% of the time. Blacks from Caribbean, like 50%, so on. Native-born whites in the same low-income bracket pass this test 30% of the time. And it's the same thing. The foreign people come in, they haven't had generations of being steeped in the welfare state vision, the vision of grievances, victimology, and resentments, the idea that there are enemies out there dedicated to keeping you down. That's the message that's been pumped into the head of the white lower class in Britain. And that's the image that's been pumped into the black low-income people in the United States. And the results are the same in both cases.
Wow.
But the thing I try to explain to a person is, think of it more like golf. Don't think of it as privilege, then think of it like a handicap, right? In golf, they acknowledge that you are in a position where you need so many advantages to be competitive in the game.
Is that we ought not to be doing this?
You know, there are various laws and policies that benefit one group at the expense of another. But I think affirmative action has the distinction of being one that it harms everybody, though in different ways. And so there's a lot of evidence that there are black kids who have all the qualifications to be successes in college, who nevertheless are failures because they are systematically mismatched with institutions whose standards they don't meet, even though they may meet the standards of 80 or 90% of the colleges in America. I remember first aware of this when I was teaching at Cornell, and I found that half the black students at Cornell were on some kind of academic probation. And so I went over to the administration building and looked up the SATs of these students. The average black student at Cornell at that time scored at the 75th percentile.
Which is pretty darn good.
Yes. And so that means that in most colleges in this country, they would have no trouble, and many of them would be on the dean's list. But at Cornell, the average liberal arts student at that time was in the 99th percentile. And when you're teaching the students like that, you teach at a pace that most people of any race cannot keep up with. And it was always complained that I was assigning all kinds of reading. But heck, I'm teaching kids who are in the top 1%. They can keep up with the reading that I'm assigning.
So Cornell was taking very talented black kids and spending 4 years teaching them to feel inadequate.
Yes, and succeeding at that.
Right? So what they say is you have a handicap of 15, so that means like you're going to be hitting from this tee and you get more chances to get the ball in because we understand the position you're in. And if you're a black person in America, from slavery, from day one.
Pondering all this, I noticed something.
And I do have to say this too. I feel like a lot of people take this slavery stuff and use that as an excuse to not succeed in life. And a lot of people jump to that, slavery. Me personally, obviously, anybody, you don't like the slavery, you don't,
Yeah.
I don't even like watching movies about, slavery and seeing them get beat or killed or, anything like that. Like, I don't even like seeing stuff like that. And it's a movie we talking about. So I definitely don't like it, but it's the simple fact of, yes, that is a sad thing of going through that by all means. But you can do something to make that better. That's just like that's just like if you coming from something of, it's just one of those things, especially that long ago. Because I'm not even trying to, compare apples to oranges, but it's that long ago. I can't even sit there and be like, oh yeah, that's just like if your parent. We talking about slavery.
Yeah.
Um,
we weren't.
Unless you really hadn't came from
Of course,
that.
Yeah. It's not like
I feel like me
from.
personally, that's not going to affect what I have, going on with me.
Right now, yeah.
Just like any racial issues, I've had plenty of things that have happened, as far as somebody being, the R word towards me. I play the game every day. Come on, are you playing Call of Duty? I get it every day, or even in person when I was going to school or while I didn't let that affect me and how I push, going through and everybody's not the same, but I'm here to say, if that's what you're taking, like, you shouldn't, like, that shouldn't,
Right.
bother you. Shouldn't let it get to you.
Pondering all this, I noticed something, a column that you wrote, this is a couple of years ago, in which you rebutted Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times. And Kristof had ascribed the gaps between African Americans and whites in America, gaps in wealth, gaps in educational achievement, the usual gaps, to, and this is a quotation from Kristof, to the lingering effects of slavery, close quote.
Oh, yes.
And here's Tom Sowell, quote, "If we wanted to be serious about evidence, we might compare where blacks stood 100 years after the end of slavery with where they stood after 30 years of the liberal welfare state. In other words, we could compare hard evidence on the legacy of slavery with hard evidence on the legacy of liberals," close quote. And
The number of injustices that have held black people back in America amount to an insurmountable, like you look at black people's freedom, you look at black people's land, just land alone. The amount of wealth you can acquire over time if you own land is exponential, because you have the land, you have the fact that you can borrow based on the land, you have the fact that you can use the money that you have borrowed to grow more wealth, you can use it to grow your family's wealth. Just taking that away from black people alone.
right, right. And also, if you think you've been if you think you've been wronged, your recourse might also be more likely to politics to try to redress this
And
whole.
I don't really have much to say. What is his name? Trevor Noah, because I'm not really. It's more so. First of all, I'm pretty sure it's my first time hearing Trevor Noah. But I listen to a lot of Thomas Sowell, and the dude, this guy, that he makes a lot of sense when it comes to a lot of things. And I really I look up to a lot of I want a lot of people that actually make sense. People that don't beat around the bush, people that doesn't use excuses, people that, and I look at that. I really can't right now, especially it being my first time listening to Trevor Noah, I can't really follow a lot with.
They'll be more likely to politics to try to redress this whole redistribution,
Oh, yeah.
rather than hit the books, acquire the skills, get the job.
But the other thing too, one of my favorite statistic in there is that the poverty rate among blacks as a whole is 22%. Among whites as a whole is 11%, and among black married couples is 7.5%.
So
the black married couples is actually less than the white folks. He didn't say white people, like a white married couple. He just said white,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's
And it's been and black married couples have never had a poverty rate as high as 10% in any year since 1994.
all right. So to the cry, what is to be done? Tom Sowell answers:
It's been done.
get
but-
an education, get married, have kids after you get married. That's sort of the answer, right?
Well, yes, and the things that work for other people tend to work pretty generally.
All right.
Is crippling them. And so you combine that with slavery, and then you look at Jim Crow laws. You didn't let black people in America live in the areas that they wanted to live in. They couldn't get loans from the banks that they wanted to get loans from. And then on top of that, when they started getting the loans from American banks were found to be giving them higher interest rates when in fact they were the same risk as many of the other races that they were giving loans to. So when you combine all of those things, I think it's safe to say that black Americans have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people. That's it. Doesn't have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people. That's it. Have that conversation.
In terms of
he's not speaking for me. So
political leaders, all the incentives politically are for black leaders to blame all problems in the black community on the larger society. And that enables them to take on the role of being the defender of the black community against enemies, which in turn creates the situation in which many blacks don't feel that anything that they do is going to help themselves unless it's done politically as a group. That there's no point. I mean, why would you, if you believe what they say, why would you want to knock yourself out in school knowing that the man is not going to let you get anywhere? Well, one of the most pathetic things I heard in recent years was a young black man saying that, you know, at one point he thought he would join the Air Force and become a pilot. And then he says he realized that the white man is not going to let a black man become a pilot.
And right there, I hear that a lot. When I was in school, like I said, we would have kids come from a bad area. They call it North District. And I would hear some of the kids, I'm not gonna say all the kids, but I hear some of the kids like, I'd be like, yeah, I want to be a Secret Service agent, you know, when I grew up. Oh, you a snitch. Oh, you this, you that. And then they'd be like, oh, well, they ain't, man, don't white people ain't gonna let you. Bro, if you had that set in your head, bro, that means you want to be a failure in life. Because regardless, you shouldn't let nobody, I don't care, white, black, Asian, you yellow, you blue, I don't care what color you are, you can't tell me that I can't do something. It has been done.
Right, already, so.
It has been done.
Yeah.
There's been plenty black, like what, I feel like a lot of what a lot of black people got in their head is the fact that they think that they can't do nothing because of the white man. Yeah. You can do a lot. There's plenty to do. I grew up thinking, you know, that I hear it again from those kids like, oh, I can't do this, can't do that. I said it before in the video with the whole YouTube thing. I didn't see, you know, different YouTubers. I used to watch a dude named Supercar Suspects, Tall Guy Car Reviews. Supercar Suspects was white, Tall Guy Car Reviews was black. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure both of them still do YouTube. Yep. And I watched other YouTubers that had, you know, and how, oh, they got 60,000 subscribers, they got 70, and I just hit 200,000. So things can be done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Things can be done, but if you keep in your mindset that you can't do it and have somebody
negative mindset, then
you growing up, oh yeah, the white man ain't gonna let me. Nah, they ain't gonna. Yeah. You probably won't get far in life. That's you telling yourself basically that you're gonna fail because of somebody else's supposedly how they, and that's not even the case.
He was saying this decades after the Tennessee Airmen had established their reputation in combat in Europe, you know. But the hopelessness is one of the big products of the race industry. That you have no chance. I remember giving a talk at Marquette, and at the end of the talk, among the questions that was asked, a young black man got up and he said, "Even though I am graduating from Marquette University, what hope is there for me?" And having gone through college when I was in the 50s, I don't remember any blacks saying that in the 1950s, when there was a lot more obstacles to overcome than there were when this guy graduated.
And that just shows you right there that a lot of people use more so excuses of, that's just like, yeah, like we watch different movies, and I know I saying movies, but we would watch movies. Obviously, we weren't there in the 50s or the 60s. Right. But even hearing from, you know what I'm saying, my grandparents, like, did everything that they could, you know, to get, you know, even my grandparents, my parents, everything they could to get me where I am today. To make sure we having a good life, you know, growing up in elementary and middle school and high school, you know, to have a good life. And I feel like, you know, that's is more people using more excuses, especially more black people using more excuses of they can't do something. But then in the 50s and the 60s, they had it way worse of actual racism, you know, but still, and still had that, you know, drive to actually get something done. Yeah. You know, you watch different documentaries, you watch different movies, and you see how it was back then, how bad it was, and you still see them black folks, all right, we gonna get out here and we gonna try to make it happen.
Right, regardless, yeah.
You know, we just watched the last movie we watched, Hidden Figures, about the black. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a lot of things that you can actually, like, it's telling you.
You can do anything.
But then you got people now that ain't even have to go through a lot of stuff, white, black, Asian, regardless of what, you know what I'm saying, back then, you got people using excuses Exactly.
rating from
It's
Marquette.
crazy.
But you have to produce that kind of feeling in order to serve the interests of those in the race industry.
Somewhere, watching this interview, there's a young Thomas Sowell. There's an African American who's smart and wants to do something with his life. It seems to me we've already got one piece of advice you'd offer to him is stay away from the races industry. Stay away from the race hustlers. What advice would you give a young Thomas Sowell? How do you make something of yourself as an African American in America today?
The way anybody else would. You equip yourself with skills that people are willing to pay for.
All right. Tom.
Thomas Sowell is a smart dude.
Yeah. It's been a minute for Thomas Sowell.
Man, that was a nice video. I actually enjoyed that video a lot. Definitely, I think that's one of my favorite Thomas Sowell's videos. Of actually, talking about and discussing things that needs to be said, and things that need to be heard.
Hear, yeah.
Exactly. But definitely make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. Let me know y'all thoughts down below, especially about the Trevor Noah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that guy.
But you already know, hit that like button, subscribe button. Catch y'all next one.